I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. It is a beautiful Tuesday afternoon.
That it is. I'm trying to get my camera in a good spot here. So there we go. Perfect. All right. Did you have a good day, sir?
Mine was okay. It was okay. I got a couple sessions done, and that was about all I got done. I'm taking this week off as a vacation, so
Oh, okay.
yeah,
A much needed time off.
yeah, very much so.
Okay. What up, Justin? How you doing, bro? Um, the I think the icebreaker today was X-Men movies. So
Yes.
let's talk about that.
Well,
All right. Once I get this figured out. So I think we talked about best and the worst. So what do you got?
yeah. So for my worst, I'm thinking the first one, just the original
Really?
X-Men. I wasn't feeling it. I didn't think the acting was great. Some of the special effects were not great, and it's been about 10 years since I've seen it. But that would be my rank for the worst. But for the best, I don't know if you count Deadpool or the second Deadpool to be X-Men. It's got a lot of X-Men characters in it.
Mhm.
But if that one counts, then X-Men 2 or Deadpool 2 would be my vote for the best. That one was my favorite for sure.
So I'm looking at all the, I would say, I think there's one of them I haven't seen. I think the most recent one I haven't seen, but I would say Apocalypse was garbage. It
Apocalypse
was
I've not seen. Was that the one with Sansa from Game of Thrones in it? Or no, that was Dark
um,
Phoenix.
I'm not sure if that's the one I haven't seen is Dark Phoenix, but
Yeah,
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 this one is it has the dude from Oscar Isaac. So he was Poe Dameron in the Star Wars movies,
yeah.
which he's a really good actor and he's done a lot of really great movies. But here they put a bunch of makeup on him and he was like CGI'd and it just seemed like a money grab. It just seemed I think after maybe the third one, The Last Stand, it all seemed like a money grab to me. Like
Yeah,
let's go back in the past and I'm just like I don't get it. The continuity is just lost to me.
yeah, yeah. I felt like there was some good characters, but I think a lot of them weren't really explored. That's kind of how I
Yeah,
felt about it.
there was like no backstory. There was I mean, it was let's the whole time machine thing, the whole like let's go back when people are young or whatever. And then introduce them to, but Wolverine stays the same age. It was just like I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
What up, fireman? But I think the best one was, or my favorite one. I think my favorite one is still probably the first one. I think I got to disagree with you there because that was like the first.
really.
Yeah, because it was like Rogue, and I like Anna Paquin, and it was like introducing everybody, and it wasn't too hokey. Like special effects and stuff were still there, but it wasn't like too crazy like CG. Well, I guess it was CGI, but what was your favorite?
For me, Dead the Deadpool. It's got to be Deadpool. The second Deadpool.
Okay, so you're just lumping in. Yeah, I guess Deadpool is more of an X-Men movie than a
Yeah,
Marvel movie.
there's a lot of X-Men characters in it. They go to the X-Men mansion.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess it's not Marvel, it's DC then, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Is X-Men Marvel or DC? I don't actually know.
Pretty sure it's DC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because otherwise we never had like a and nothing was ever like intertwined. Like nothing like they could have made like a crossover movie or something, but that'll never happen.
That's
I
true.
I,
Yeah.
I predict that never happens anyway.
Right.
So all right, so we got a little 5 minute. I guess we didn't really take 5 minutes with that, but that's fine. Um, what up, Jordan? Um, we're going to talk about a legendary fill from a legendary drummer named Phil. So let's talk about the Phil that everyone knows, the Phil from In the Air Tonight. So what
Yes.
what are your You had a fun story about that, actually.
Yeah.
Well,
So
Fernando.
I happen to know Thomas Lang, and I talk to him not often, but occasionally. And he was talking about that fill from In the Air Tonight. For those of you that don't know, there's a big fill there that goes do doom do doom do doom do doom do doom, and it's just kind of known among music lovers as really really catchy and just an iconic kind of point in music. And Thomas, being the famous drummer that he is, of course, he knows Phil Collins. He's personal friends with Phil Collins, and Phil Collins was talking to him one day and going over some of his hit records and stuff. And Thomas asked him about that fill and how he came up with it and how he played it, et cetera, et cetera. And what Phil was doing back then, this was back in, I think this was the 70s. But Phil wasn't like a super, didn't have perfect technique as a drummer, like perfect hand technique. So what he was doing is he was hitting the drum, and burying the stick into the drum when he hit it. So boom, boom, which is very bad for your wrist, by the way. Don't ever do that.
It was 1981, by the way.
1981, okay.
Yeah.
And but that's how he was playing it, and that gives the drum extremely short decay, a very staccato kind of feel and sound to it. And while it is technically improper technique and it's bad for your hands, that is part of what gave that fill such a unique feel and sound, because it made it feel very sharp and staccato on each of those hits. Do do, and then dig it in, bum 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 bum, and not let it naturally rebound. So the drums were very very sharp and staccato on that section, and it really lends itself to the kind of musical vibe I think that Phil was going for with that. It made it even bigger and more powerful because of how punchy it was,
Well, and also you said that he was doing that because he didn't have very good technique, right?
Exactly.
At the same time. So it wasn't necessarily on purpose. It was just, I got to come up, I got to play drums. And a lot of people don't know that he played drums and sang in Genesis at the same time.
Which is really hard to do.
It's very hard. Like the only other drummers that I know that did it successfully are Don Henley from the Eagles. And that's basically it for mainstream. I don't know any other singing drummers.
Don Henley, Phil Collins, and that's all I can think of off the top of my head that are mainstream, like you mentioned.
There's other people that do it, but not anywhere close to the scale that they do, for sure.
No, for sure. I agree. But it's really interesting. And I think it's fascinating to have big moments like that come out of, accidents or improper technique, because it kind of helps highlight that you don't need perfect technique in order to, perform or create great music. The technique helps, but the technique is just the vehicle that gets you there. What really matters is that
you don't need perfect technique to become a legend. Actually, that guy is absolute. There's not a drum fill that is more iconic than.
There's not.
For
people
sure.
Who know nothing about drums know that song and know that drum fill.
You can watch The Hangover, and you can watch that scene in The Hangover with Mike Tyson. That's and it'll be just as good. But yeah, a couple things on that too. Is you need the right toms to actually play the fill. So you definitely want to keep it double stopped, but also what up, Tomko?
Explain what double stops are for.
So double stops would mean you actually hit both sticks at the same time. A flam would be if you. Yeah, different than a flam. So a flam would be like you have one note, it's a grace note, and one bigger note that comes down, like that. Double stop is when they come down at the same time. So if you really want to play that fill, I think you want to make it true to the way that it was before. What up, Mono? Momo, sorry. I really think you should play double stopped and actually play double stopped on the same drums. But he also does it live a couple times as well, where he can go, because he uses 5 toms. So we'll play toms 1 and 2 for the first hit, or for the first 2, Jaja, and then 2 and 3, Jaja, and then 3 and 4, Jaja, and then 4 and 5, Jaja, and then the last 2 hits he normally plays as flams on the bottom drum. So even if you have 6 toms, you could have that one 8-inch or 6-inch tom that's super high, and then you can literally go 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 5, and then the last 2 hits. So Jaja, 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 and then on tom 6 you can go blum blum. And then he doesn't play a whole lot of crashes either. There's not a crash after that. If you listen to the track, it's just Jaja, 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 don't count.
back to the kick,
and there's not even any hi-hat. So it's very, yeah, it's I think that's what makes it iconic, is it's non-traditional, but it's one of those, like, he recorded it and then he's like, oh, I guess I'm a legend now. Like, he didn't mean to, like, he didn't do it with intent. He just happened to get lucky, and everybody knows it and everybody loves it and everybody drums along to it. I mean, you got to air drum to that. If it comes on the radio, everybody's going to air drum to that. Yeah.
It's great.
What up, Hugo?
It really is. Well, I think that kind of segues nicely, I think, into our next topic, because that's all about the sound and the tone. And I think the next thing we're going to talk about is kind of spring tension and beater choice, which is very important for your bass drum tone, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I think that's a very interesting topic, because it's not something that's talked about a ton, but it can make a really, really big difference on how your foot technique goes and how you play. I personally, I like to use like medium level tension. For those of you that don't know, the difference that tension makes really has to do with the rebound and how efficient it is to play fast. So like if you want to only play, like if your goal is to play like death metal, then you need to crank your spring tension to the max, because that pulls the beater off of the head more quickly. If the beater's not able to rebound fast enough, then you won't be able to get the beater in position in time for the next stroke, and so you won't be able to play fast enough. So that's one of like 5 different reasons why you want to crank your tension for death metal. But the problem with that is it makes it easier to play long strings of single strokes with your feet, but it makes it a lot harder to play dynamically. It's hard to play at different volume levels that way. It's also really, really hard to play like heel down, and it's also really, really hard to play double strokes. So whether it's heel toe doubles, regular slide doubles, whatever. So cranking your spring tension is really, really only good if you're playing long strings of single strokes with your feet. And if you are, then that's what you need to do. But that's my goal for that. So I use a medium tension because I like to be able to play dynamically. I play a lot of doubles and stuff like that. And I also like to use, for beaters, I use the default beaters that came with my machine chain drive pedals. They have, they're kind of like a mallet, like a plastic mallet, but they've got a thin layer of felt on the end. So they're not quite as slappy as like a regular mallet is, like the Axis pedals have. It's got a little bit more of a, I guess, kind of a boom to it, and a little bit less of a clap. So
real quick for people listening, so the standard beater, I believe, this comes with all the DW pedals, is it's hard felt on one side, and then the other side it has a white felt tip. So you can either have a hard plastic, so a more staccato sound, or you can have a felt for like a warmer sound. What up, Ronald? So, but then they also make wooden beaters. They make all felt beaters, like depending on the drums and things like that. But yeah, I agree. You got to crank the spring tension. So if you're looking for a versatile setting on your double bass pedal, or for your beater choice, if you want a beater that can give you multiple different sounds from multiple different songs, what up, Jay? Then you need to not crank your spring tension all the way up. Like you're not going to go and play an R&B and be able to play like ghosty type bass drum notes, like softer notes, or have more flexibility. Like I always sit down with my pedal and just mess with it for like an hour, and just take the bass drum away from the kit, take the throne, sit down and just maneuver with it. Like an angle, like let's talk about angle. So how far back, like what degree angle do you have your beater off of your bass drum?
So if this is the kick drum head, and of course you've got the ground, so mine is at about a 45, maybe slightly greater than 45. So 45 would be right in the middle. Mine's maybe at a 50, maybe a 55, just slightly greater than halfway.
Okay. I think I'm about the same. It's definitely, I think I'm actually less than 45, if not 45 right on the nose, because I really think, what up, Pole 22? I don't know, is that one of yours?
No, I'm not familiar with Pole, but welcome.
Okay. Okay, cool. The thing that I run into is if it's too far back, it's going to hit the top of your foot.
Yep.
Which sucks. It really does not feel good.
Yeah. And
then if it's too far forward, you can't get enough play off the pedal to play like doubles and stuff like that. So you're going to want to start at 45 and start moving it closer or further away. But I don't really know anybody who keeps it like super close. Now, depending on what surface you're playing, like if I have my auxiliary, like my moon block on a foot pedal, I have the beater at like that far off the yeah, because I'm playing it with the side of my heel.
Oh,
So
right.
depending on the setting, or maybe you have a second bass drum or something like that, then but typically I would say 40. If you don't play at 45 degrees, I don't know how you get you won't get any volume. It's kind of like if you only ever played it like 3 inches off the drum. Like, how are you ever going to play loud? Like, if you're in a metal band, you need to have a hard hitting section. You're only playing 3 inches off the drum. That's like if you have it less than 45 degrees, you're not going to be able to get enough power. So I think it's the balance. I've also had the pedal hit the bottom of the footboard sometimes too, if it's not far enough back. So you got to imagine when some pedals will have like a play on the actual like settings and stuff. So you just need to mess around with it. But yeah, spring tension, same way. Start with it really loose, start cranking it up. Some pedals are easier than others to adjust that. So
Yeah, I agree. I think those are good points. You wanted to talk about a couple of different like specific items. I've got
what
one
up, Ryan?
as well. It's called the tuner fish.
You
Okay.
talk about that. I'm gonna go grab that key, but keep talking.
Yeah. So, guys, if y'all have ever been playing a drum and you've got tuning rods on your drum all around it, and those tuning rods are tensioned to define, how your drum sounds. Well, sometimes those tension rods will just kind of unscrew themselves over time as you play, especially on older or lower quality drums. And so this was happening to me on a couple of my drums that I've had for over a decade, and I don't want to get rid of them because they're kind of vintage. There's this thing called the tuner fish, which is a little plastic cap that fits on your lug, and it stops the lug from spinning. It's super, super convenient. You can buy a pack of 100 of them for like $5, and you just stick them on your lugs, and it stops them from detuning. It won't be an issue on like newer or really, really nice, expensive drums, but most of us can't afford really nice, expensive drums. So
True.
it's a good way of getting some additional mileage out of a drum that may otherwise be, a little bit over the hill.
Or like, I think that's also a good application for like any drum, to be honest, because if you're real anal about your tuning, if the tension rod can't loosen, the pitch can't go down as much. Like the head is still going to stretch out, and you still have like, humidity and other elements and things that are going to affect the pitch of the drum. But like, that is a good way of being like, I want to play a gig, or maybe you're playing a long gig and you don't want to like tune up in between. You just want to like set it and forget it. Or maybe it's like a mental thing, and you can do that. I had a problem. The tension rod right where I hit rim shots would loosen.
That's the problem I have. Exactly.
So maybe you put the tuner fish right on that tension rod and the ones to the left and to the right of it, and that way you don't have to worry about it. Because if you're in a gig and you're in the middle of a song and you look down and you see the tension rod is just bouncing around because it has nothing on it, it's like your nightmare, because you have to fix that quick. Otherwise you're going to break your head. And it's probably going to sound like ass. You can't just change out a snare drum. You can't tell the band to stop. So it's one of those things like you should probably plan ahead. If you're playing a long gig or you're shooting, you're going to be shooting for 3 hours or something like that, then use it for sure.
Yeah, I like it a lot. So
I just play Tama drums and I don't have that problem. So, I don't even need it.
Not used Tama myself, but I have used Pearl, and I like Pearl. And DW is the one I'm getting soon. So we'll see if it happens with DW.
That Pearl snare, that new snare is a Pearl chassis, and it's an absolute beast. So I will never shit on Pearl. I use a Pearl Icon rack. They make great stuff. I just love my Birch Babinga Tama kit, and until I get my eye on something else, then it'll be my pride and joy.
Company for sure. I have a Tama snare actually, a limited edition Warlord.
Oh yeah, that thing's a beast, and I have a Pearl Cam Shifter Eliminator double pedal.
Oh, nice.
That I used for 12 years or something. It has different. It's an amazing pedal. It's just the Tama pedal is a little bit smoother. But anyway, this is a Revolution drum key, and this is actually your boy Thomas Lang.
Yes, I recognize that.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So they got me on that Instagram that sponsored ad. But I figured this would be good to have when I made my snare review video. So if you haven't watched that, please go to my YouTube and watch it. I spent like $1,000 on a snare drum and did all different tunings, different big fat snare drums. Recorded it with a really nice recorder. Gave a nice demo on it. So it's a great drum. but this is a game changer. So there's one side to loosen, and if you look at it, it'll move. This way is to loosen, and then this way is to tighten. Okay, this way goes the other way, but it doesn't go both ways. Okay, so you can spin it to loosen, spin it to tighten. Okay, but the benefit of that is when you stick it on the drum, you don't need to turn it. You never need to turn this key all the way. You just ratchet it, and it will just literally, like, if you want to loosen something, you just
that would be so handy in so many situations I've experienced just in the last 2 weeks.
Bro, this is like, I can't go back to anything else now. Like I have obviously other drum keys and stuff like that, but like tuning on the fly, like being able to control, like if I turn like a quarter turn, all I need to do is do the same way multiple times. I don't have to be like this. It's just less effort. So I mean, and less effort adds up. It actually makes me want to like go back and like tune my stuff. What up, Fru? How you doing, bro? What up, Ed? Ed from Drum Flip is here at our podcast. We got a celebrity here. We got to wave to that guy. But okay, I'll go over this again. So because Ed will geek out on this. So Ed, I'm not sure if you've seen this this drum key, but it's actually ratchet. So it actually loosens and tightens depending on the side. So you actually don't need to turn it. You could just do this, make those little motions. So yeah, it's really great. The other piece of gear that's actually, I didn't get it on my car, but if you find yourself breaking a lot of sticks, okay, Vader makes something called Stick Shield, which is it's about a 3-inch by 3-inch, like, I don't know, it goes around the stick, but it's like a Kevlar sticker. And what I do is I play the sticks a little bit just naturally, and then I go look at the stick marks, and I'll actually wrap the stick shield, which is like, it's like a piece of a drum head with adhesive on the bottom of it. You put it around the stick, and then anytime you hit rim shots or cymbal hits or whatever, it protects the stick. I had a pair of Vader 5Bs that I used, no joke, for almost 3 months with Stick Shield.
Dang, dude. I go through sticks at least once a week.
No, you need to get Stick Shield. I'm telling you. And what's cool is you don't have to be like a Vader guy or a Vic Firth guy. It doesn't matter. Just get the Stick Shield and put it on whatever sticks you use. My biggest concern was, how's it going to affect the dynamic of the stick? Like, I don't want it to weigh it down. I don't want it to affect the balance. It affects it in no way, shape, or form. Like, I cannot tell any difference. I'm very, very subtle difference, but I spend $6 a month on sticks.
That's so much better, dude. I'm easily going through 4 pairs of sticks a month, which is probably close to $100 a month. Well, no, that's probably close to $50 a month.
Sticks are like very expensive, and I like supporting companies, everything like that. But why? I mean, if you like, and once it gets to like halfway, you get all these shards flying in your face and like woods all over your drum rug and stuff like that.
As the stick gets chewed up, its rebound changes and it starts to feel different.
It starts, yeah. So that's a way to mitigate that. So I'm a big proponent of that, and get it off Sweetwater. Guitar Center actually didn't have them in stock the last time I looked, unfortunately. But it's one of those things like to have in your stick bag. You want to have like Moon Gel. You want to have this thing. You want to have some tuner fish. You want to have like well, that's a conversation for a different time. You should have like a bag of goodies, like an extra hi-hat collect, some studio rings, all that kind of stuff. But we can talk about that next week. So let's talk about cymbal repair. So you have a couple of broken cymbals that you're going to send me, don't you?
Yes. So I have 2 Dark Classics cymbals that I'm going to be sending to Jeff, guys. And they're cracked. They've been used to the point where they don't really, work as cymbals anymore. Well, they don't work as regular crash cymbals anymore. I'm going to send them to Jeff. Jeff is going to do something secret. Throw some holes in them, I think, probably. And give them new life. What exactly do you have planned?
Shameless plug for Meinl, which, not that we, have any endorsements or anything like that, but we both use Meinl for a reason. And if you have any questions, you can always hit us up, but they're an amazing company. So I know 2 cymbal repair people. One of them is, his name is Kadir, and his handle is Cymbal Repair and Mods on Instagram. And then the other one is, his name is Nicky Moon, and he makes his own cymbals, Nicky Moon Cymbals. So definitely go follow them. Kadir has a lot of interesting. He has like a sense of humor, so he'll do his videos. He'll do it in like a different voice and stuff or whatever. So it's entertaining. But basically, if you have a cracked cymbal, it's not all hope is not lost. Okay, so let's say that you have a cymbal that you really like, but it has a little tiny crack in it. Okay, those cracks can be waved out. Okay, so you have these guys that have shops where they can take the cymbal and they can put it on, mount it somewhere solid and just take like a saw and essentially just cut out whatever the bad part is, whatever the crack is. And it will take the resonance of the cymbal and the quality down a little bit, but it will sound immensely better with no crack because you're eliminating the problem.
That's
and
great.
So if you spend like $400 on a cymbal and you crack it, it sucks. Or some cymbals are just, you just get unlucky and they just break. I mean, it happens. I mean, it's happened to me before. They get cracks in them and you're not even hitting them that hard or using them that often. But I'm getting a 21-inch ride and 18-inch crash, right?
Yes. Yeah. 21-inch ride, 18-inch crash.
So the ride, I'm going to have them wave out both of the cracks, but on the crash, I can have them make it into an ozone. And if you buy an ozone brand new, an 18-inch ozone, that'll probably run 175, 200.
Yeah, probably.
But Kadir charges, $50 to ship. You're charging me $25 a cymbal. I mean, you do the math. You can get essentially a 40 to 50% discount on whatever cymbals you want in the future by doing it that way. As long as you're not obsessed with like cosmetics, like you want it to be brand new. But another thing I want to talk about just real quick with this is this gives you the opportunity to be creative with your cymbals as well. Like you don't always need to play the same line of cymbals, the same type, the same brand. Everything has to match and look the same. Like mix and match it up. Like if you have an old cymbal, hit up Nikki or hit up Kadir, and shipping is cheap. Ship off your cymbal and say, hey, I want to put rivets in it. I've done that. I have a clock. I have the clock sitting right next to me that has I had him put 3 rivets in the ride cymbal that I don't use anymore. It's good for like open mics, but I don't use it for live settings or recording. It's on my wall right now. But he put rivets in it. Or I want to make this into an ozone, or I want to cut down my cymbal and make it into mini hi-hats, or I have an idea of something quirky. I mean, you can just be creative and like enjoy your instrument is what I'm saying. Like cymbals, have fun. There's a lot you can do with them, and they can make the dream a reality. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I didn't know that was a real thing. So I've always treated cracked cymbals as just cymbals that are done that you need to replace. I was not aware that you could repair them in that way. So that's definitely very fascinating.
Well, if you decide to back out on our deal, I will not blame you. It's more of an experiment than anything else. I've only flipped a couple of the cymbals to resell. I don't recommend doing that. There is a pretty popular Meinl cymbals group on Facebook, and they don't really get down on the modded cymbals too much. But I think it's really fun. It's a really fun way to. I'll say this. I'll get off my soapbox. Anybody who says they have broken cymbals, if it's a brand you like, offer them a quarter of the price. If you want to offer them 20, 30, or 40 or $50 or whatever, have them ship it directly to Nikki or Kadir. Tell them what you want to do, have them ship it back, and just have fun with it. And honestly, like I have a 22-inch cymbal that is almost $500 brand new, and I've maybe put 180 or 190 into it. And it's one of my best cymbals. So, I mean, you just never know how they're going to come out.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Well, I think that's really interesting. We also wanted to talk a little bit about double bass.
Yep.
So there's 2 ways you can play double bass, right? You can get 2 kick drums, each with a single pedal, or you can get 1 kick drum with a double pedal. And I get asked occasionally on my stream, what's the difference and why would you want one or the other? For me, the difference is twofold. One, if you're playing with a double pedal, then that means if you're right-handed, of course, and you have a standard left double pedal, then the left pedal is a slave pedal. And that slave pedal has not only got to push the spring and the beater forward, it's also got to turn the axle. And the turning of that axle adds not only some additional weight
What up, Shane?
that the pedal has to move, it also adds a little bit of additional friction. And it's not a lot. I'm not acting like this is a big deal, but it is very slightly noticeable. So that left is not going to have the same power, and you're not going to be able to play it with the same kind of, dexterity The difference is tremendously small. It's not a huge deal, and there's lots of people that use double pedals at very high levels of playing with no problem. So I don't want to act like, it's game changing, because it's not. But the slave pedal will be slightly different than the main pedal. So that's one reason to play 2 kick drums instead of a double pedal, is that if you want completely identical response out of both pedals, then you're going to need 2 kick drums. Another reason is if you're playing very, very fast double bass stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that Derek Roddy taught me one time. When you hit a drum, the head vibrates and it moves a column of air that goes through the drum and hits the resonant head, which causes the resonant head to vibrate, which moves the column of air back. Okay, and so you've got this oscillation of air inside the drum, and it's analogous to whatever the frequency is of that drum. So if you've got a drum tuned to A440, the air is going to be oscillating at that frequency. Now let's imagine that that's vibrating 440 times a second, and you're playing so fast with both your hands that the second stroke comes before that column of air has time to complete one full cycle. Okay? If the column of air can't complete one full cycle, you have not achieved one full complete sound wave out of that stroke before the second stroke occurs. So
you're saying it just all gets garbled instead of being clear?
Yeah, so you're not going to have multiple individual clearly defined strokes. And according to Derek Roddy, I can't play that fast because I'm not Derek Roddy. But according to Derek Roddy, that tempo, for most drums, is around 250 BPM.
Okay.
So if you're going to be playing at that speed and above, you really are going to need 2 drums, or you're going to need to completely sound replace or trigger your drum, one or the other. And that way all of your strokes can sound perfectly defined. The way Derek Roddy,
for most of us, what you're saying, for most of us that play just basic music, or we don't play 250 plus BPM, it's probably okay just to use a double bass pedal.
Exactly.
But for specific metal drummers, speed metal, death metal, lots of blast beats, things like that.
Yeah, and that's the reason why all those guys use 2 kick drums. Derek said that it starts to, like, once you get to that tempo, if you're not doing that, if you're using a double pedal, the music starts to sound smaller.
That's so crazy. I never even thought of. So I always saw 2 bass drums as a way to like flex on somebody.
And that's the last reason, is because a lot of people think it looks cool, and I think it does. It does look cool.
It's cool if you have an extra like $2,000 to invest in the bass drum that matches the current drum set, because that's another thing. If you don't buy a kit with 2 bass drums, a bass drum a la carte is going to cost more than your kit did. Yeah. Like 99% of the time. Like, it's going to be like, if I were to buy a white, I don't know if matte white is a color, but white Birch Babinga 22 by 18 or whatever my bass drum is by itself, it would be like $1,200, because I'd probably have to have Tama make it. So that's another thing too. Like, do you really want to gig with 2 bass drums? Like, I think the answer is no. Like, we're looking for lighter hardware. We're looking for smaller, more functional setups. Like, you add another bass drum into it, we're moving the opposite direction.
Exactly.
But again, if like Derek, that is the only time anybody's ever explained 2 bass drums where I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's practical. That's logical, and not like, I just want to make it look bigger and I want to make myself look cooler because I have more drums.
But that reasoning only applies to like 1% of drummers. Very few people play at that tempo.
Exactly. So if you are watching this and you have 2 bass drums and you are not playing 250 plus BPM, you are a poser and you need to stop. But kind of serious.
Well,
kind of serious.
Yeah.
A little bit serious, but maybe it's just jealousy. I don't know. All right, that's it for this week. So, anything else? Did we get to everything?
I think we got to everything. I like a lot of that stuff. I'm actually going to go buy myself one of those stick shields for sure.
Hell yeah, do it.
Got a lot.
And hit me up on how it's working, because I always want to get feedback from other, like, did it actually affect the weight or the performance of the stick or the feel, whatever.
Okay, well, that sounds good, man. Guys, thank y'all for watching. We'll be back next Tuesday at 8 o'clock U.S. Central Time. And until then, hope you guys have a great week, and we will see you in the next stream.